I would like to introduce you to Vinny Cruz. Again, I'm sure many of you know of Vinny. He's a local competitor and he is an absolute whiz with Autosolos. But recently, Vinny has become the streetcar ambassador for the region. And that is something that we do with Motorsport UK, the national governing body. And I'll let Vinny talk to you more about that. So I'd like to pass on to Vinny, who'll be leading tonight's session.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you very much for joining. It's brilliant that we've got so many people. It's really good to see that there are some people interested in Autosolos out there. So that's really good. I'll talk to you a little bit about me, and then we're going to move on into the interesting stuff. Vinny Cruz. I was born in Brazil. I've been in the UK for about 20 years. Back in Brazil, I used to do some level of motorsport, mainly karting and off-road. When I moved to the UK, I carried on doing a little bit of corporate karting. And then someone mentioned to me that I could actually race my road car and be even competitive. So I thought that's very interesting. I'd never heard of any type of motorsport that you can actually do that. And it turns out that it does exist. It's called Autosolos. So that's brilliant. We're going to talk all about Autosolos today. Plus auto tests and passenger car auto tests as well. I work in the industry, in the automotive industry. So one thing that I'm quite passionate about as well is try and get youngsters involved. So if there is anyone in the call, or if you know of anyone that wants to get involved in either motorsport or automotive industry, feel free to put them in contact with me. I'm more than happy to help out. I'm also a streetcar ambassador, as Laura mentioned. Streetcar is a Motorsport UK initiative. It's not a discipline. Streetcar doesn't organize events or anything like that. It's a brilliant initiative to try and get the word out there that you can do many types of motorsport using your road car. And that includes not only Autosolos, auto tests, but also 12-car rallies, Targa rallies, car trials. So there's a host of different types of disciplines that you can do. And as an ambassador, I try and show people what those are all about. Today we're going to concentrate on Autosolos now. Right, feel free to ask any question at any point, as Laura mentioned. Either physically put your hand up, or click on the button putting your hand up, or just open the mic and talk to us. That's absolutely fine. At the end, we do have a slide, which is just for questions if you want to ask anything in particular. Right, so what we're going to see and talk about today, we're going to start with what are Autosolos. I've got a few test examples as well, and some footage to show you how it all works as when you are on the test. We're going to go and talk about the differences between Autosolos, auto tests, and production car auto tests. Those three different names for basically the same thing generates a lot of confusion. There are key points that differentiate them. Particularly in the East Anglia, we run events under those three headings on the same day to allow different people or different cars to turn up, but we're going to go into details on that. We're going to go into the next about general Autosolo regulations. I'm not going to go deep into anything because it's quite boring, and there are a lot to read if you are interested in that side of things. I'll give you the resource where to find that information, but I'll keep it very brief for this webinar. Now, after that, we're going to talk about what is a typical day for someone doing Autosolo. So I do expect people in the call who never seen it, never been to one, don't even know what it all is. So I think it's going to be interesting to give you a bit of a flavor of how the day actually goes. I've got some footage that I collected on the last Autosolo that I've done. They're very short videos showing you the process of the whole day. So hopefully that will be very helpful. There are many questions that I'm asked, particularly around cars to use. What car should I buy? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. I will give you a bit of a flavor of what to look out for in terms of the driving technique and the vehicle dynamics behind Autosolos and how you can actually extract the maximum out of your car. I'm quite passionate about this topic because it's actually what my background at work is. I do a fair bit of work regarding vehicle dynamics and test driving and that sort of thing. So it's going to be brief. And if you want me to go deep into that at another session or in a call or via email or social media, whatever, just contact me and I'm more than happy to share and talk more about the technical side of things. And then at the end, we're going to tell you about 2 events coming up and how you get involved so you can get yourself started. Right, what are Autosolos then? I don't know any other motorsport that you can do in a car that is as accessible and as cheap as Autosolo. So for 40 or 50 quid a day, you drive your car for pretty much the whole day. So the way Autosolos work is we lay out tests using cones and you drive around those tests as fast as you can. So you are on your own on the test, so there is no risk of clashing with anybody else. It's only you against the clock and you have to dodge a few cones. That's pretty much it. In the East Anglia, we usually run 8 tests in total on during the day, and you drive them about 3 times in the morning and then 2 times in the afternoon. On the next slide, I've got some examples of tests, and it will become a bit clearer what I'm talking about in this part. So in the morning, you run 3 times each of the 4 tests in one direction. And then in the afternoon, instead of modifying the tests, what we do, you run the same test, but the other way around, which changes the test completely. We tend to get about 20 runs in total, which is a fair bit. In terms of seconds, we tend to get about 900 seconds in total during the day. So it's a fair bit of driving, particularly for the cost, 40, 50 quid. And the speeds are generally low, so you don't wear the car. Tires, I'll give you some tips later on how to preserve your tires as well. It can be quite kind to tires if you drive right. So you do those tests, and then all your seconds, all your times are summed up, and then at the end of the day, whoever has got less seconds wins. So we've got different classes to keep things fair. So we've got classes up to 1400 cc, a class for above 1400 cc. Then we've got a class for sports cars like Mazda MX-5s, Toyota MR2, so soft top, rear-wheel drive. We've got a class for low volume vehicles like Caterhams and Westfields. And then we've got 2 other classes which is part of the whole thing that I will explain the difference between Autosolos and Autotests and PCAs. So the other 2 classes then are Autotest and passenger car production car Autotest. In terms of awards, in the East Anglia, we tend to give awards for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So you do get a little trophy saying what position you came during the day, which is quite cool. It's quite nice. And whoever was the fastest of the day also gets to win the event, which is called the FTD, fastest time of the day. Right, so the next 2 slides now, I'll show you 4 different types or 4 different tests that we run on the last Autosolo at Debenham. So if I start on the right one, so the dots, the black dots define the cones. So they represent cones. So you've got gates, you've got standalone cones, gate, 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 and so on. The red line is indicative of the route only, definitely not the line that you should take. It's just there to show you which side of the cone you should go. Then you've got the start and you've got the finish. Note that the finish is a box, right? It's defined by 4 cones. So on the start, the marshal is going to be next to you with a clock, or nowadays with his or her phone with an app. And then they will tell you, ready when you are. And then you set off, and they will start the clock once the front axle goes past the imaginary line between these 2 cones at the start. So as opposed to rally that they go 10 and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you set off. On Autosolos, you set off whenever you want, as long as the marshal has told you that he's ready or her is ready. So you go around, do the full test, and then you stop within this box. Now, the clock will stop when you cross, when your front axle cross the first set of cones. And you have to stop your car within those 3 lines. So if you go past any of these lines, you get a penalty. The rear axle doesn't really matter where it stops, in a sense that it can stop outside of the box. But once you cross the line with the front axle, no parts of the car can go past those 3 other lines. Cool. Right. So on the next slide, I've got a couple of videos which will hopefully give you a bit of a flavor of what the test feels like from inside the car and from outside the car. The test that those videos are from is test O, so it's on the left-hand side here. It looks a bit complicated because we go down the test and back using the same route. But it's the same thing as the test on the right-hand side that I showed. It's just that it looks a bit more complicated. So the cones are numbered. So it goes 1, 2, 3, and so on. And then on the way back, the numbers are on the other side of the cones. So you can see the numbers 32, 33, and so on. Right, so let's move on to the next 2 slides then. I'll play the footage now. Right, so the key points that I want to show in this particular video is, looking from outside, Autosolos look quite slow. They are not like a track day that you are going through the gears and then going down gears. You're usually on 1st and 2nd gear, maybe 3rd gear. But from the outside, it doesn't look that fast. However, you are constantly going full on brake, full on throttle, and lock to lock, which is quite physically demanding. So now I'm going to play the same test, onboard footage. So you're going to hear the marshal saying, ready when you are, and then I set off. Unfortunately, the camera had a glitch and it doesn't show the end of the video, but I guess it will give you a good indication of how fast it feels from inside the car. It's like go-karting. It feels super fast from the inside. One key point that I forgot to mention on the previous slide, if you look down here, you can see that there is a cone laying down and a main cone with the number. So to make your life easier, Autosolos tend to have a directional cone telling you which way to go around the main cone. So that's another help. However, I will talk about this later. You can't rely on that. If you want to go fast, you have to know the route, and I'll give you some tips on how to do that. Right, let's play the next footage then. There you go. So I hope that shows that from inside the car is extremely fun and very, very fast. So, and that is only it's a Peugeot 1.4. That's not a powerful car. It's got a brilliant handling, but it's definitely not a powerful car. I ended up third in these events overall, which I was quite happy with. I think there was 45 people competing. So it shows that a standard car is actually enough to do reasonably well on Autosolos. Right, now the differences between Autosolo, Autotest and PCA. Autosolos, you have to drive your vehicle to the venue. You cannot trailer it. You have to have MOT, tax and insurance. The minimum age is 16 years old and no passengers are allowed. It has to be done on sealed surfaces as well as tarmac. It can be, an Autosolo cannot be, Autosolo cannot be used for a grass event, such as the background picture of this slide. Now, these regulations that these differences that I'm talking about are specifically to the East Anglia. There will be places around the country that will have slightly different numbers, such as a minimum age and that sort of stuff. And the Blue Book, which I'll talk about later, might also give different information. But each region can actually come up with special regulations for their region to a certain point. So keep in mind that this is specifically for East Anglia. Now, Autotest. Traditionally, autotests are much more technical events, which require the use of handbrakes and reverse and all that. So what we've done in the East Anglia, we do raise a permit to run an autotest on the same day that we're doing an Autosolo. The tests are exactly the same, it's forward only. But the key point of entering the class called Autotest is that you can trailer your vehicle in, so it doesn't need to be road legal. So if you've got a car that you want to use for Autosolo, but it's not road legal, then you can enter the same event, the same thing, but under Autotest, which allows you to trailer it in. Autotest can be run either on sealed or unsealed surfaces, either on brass or tarmac concrete. Now, production car Autotest, that was a category which is started to try and get young people in, because the minimum age is quite low, it's 14 years old. However, you have to have a passenger with you. And if you are that young, you have to have an experienced Autosolo passenger with a driving license. There are some other restrictions, which I'm not going to go into details, but the key point of production car Autotest is to try and attract young people, or if you are someone that rather have a navigator next to you telling you where to go, that's a good class to register for as well, because then you have to have a passenger. If you go for production car Autotest, you can also trailer your car in, or you can drive a road car. But every event that we run in the East Anglia will have the three options. Autosolo is the only class, only discipline, which will have different classes, up to 1400, below 1400, sports cars, caterans and that sort of stuff. And then the other two disciplines, Autotest and production car Autotest, all the cars are bundled together. Now, the boring bit, the regulations. For people that are not familiar with how motorsport is regulated in the UK, Motorsport UK, which is the governing body, they release every year a big booklet with all the regulations that you have to follow, and that is called the Blue Book. The Blue Book is available for free on their website. If you want to have a look at that and you don't know how to find it, just send us an email and we'll get you the right links on, so you can have a look at it for yourself. The regulations is specifically for Autotest and Autosolo and PCAs on page 221 on section M. So feel free to go and have a look. I am not going to go into much detail here. All I want is to tell you what you need to keep an eye on, so you don't get caught at an event without being prepared appropriately for it. So if you're going to do an Autosolo, All you need is a yellow tape on the negative terminal of your battery. That is just so the marshals can identify the negative terminal easily in case of an accident. And it's recommended that you take a small spill kit with you. I strongly suggest that you do, because if anything goes wrong, you can contain it quickly, so it preserves the venues that we use. In terms of tires, road legal tires are a requirement, and you're not allowed to use racing tires. So the Blue Book will have a few lists of tires that you can and cannot use. For Autosolos, Autotests, and PCAs, you're not allowed to use tires from lists 1B and 1C. If you have a look at the Blue Book, that will become clear. But in general, if your tire is road legal, black and round, you will be allowed to run. So don't get too concerned about it. And if you've got any doubts, just ask us. That's absolutely fine. I tend to use quite old stuff. I get my tires I get them secondhand. I don't use anything fancy, and I never had an issue. All the cars must maintain their original body profile, so you can't really have anything too extreme. And in terms of penalties, if you hit a cone, you get 5 seconds penalty added to your run time. And it's the same thing if you go past one of the lines, one of the book lines that they stop. If you get a test wrong, that one hurts a bit. You get 20 seconds on top of the fastest time of your class. So someone else is doing really well, they are doing fast times. You get a test wrong, your time will be their time plus 20 seconds. Now, Autosolos in the East Anglia are quite competitive. So it usually, getting 5 seconds penalty will hurt your results. So you have to really be on the ball. But there are tips and techniques to try and keep away from cones. Not that I'm very good at that, I can tell you. Right, now, what is the day? How does the day goes for an Autosolo competitor? If I step back a bit and go a couple of days or a couple of weeks before that, the first thing that you need to do is to register for the event. Unfortunately, we don't have a single system that you can go in, find all the events in the country, pick one, register, and all your details are saved very easily to fill a form, and that's it. It's a bit more complicated than that, unfortunately. Things are improving, and we are pushing for them to improve, but it's still a bit complicated. So local motor clubs will run events, and then you have to find the link specifically for that event, either on Anglia Motor Sport Club website calendar or on the club in specific, whoever is organizing that event website, and you will find a link for that. My role as a streetcar ambassador is to help out on anything like this. So just fire questions at me and I'll help you out getting everything ready for you to run. Don't be afraid. I'm here to help. Right, so the first thing that you do then is to register for the event a few weeks before the event. Entries only open about 4 or 5 weeks before the event. So you might see on the calendar that there's an event in November, say, but the entries are not going to be open yet. So you need to hang on for them for a bit. So you registered for it, you paid, that means that you entered that event. A few days before it, you're going to get an email from the organizers, which is called the finals. That email must be read, must be understood. There are very important information on that email. So make sure that you do read it. And if you've got any questions, fire them up to the organizers or myself, and we'll try and help you out. Right, so you've got already then, comes the day, you wake up very early in the morning usually, and then you drive down to the venue. First thing that you see when you get very close to the venue are orange arrows pointing where the entrance is, which is quite helpful if you're not familiar with where you're going. Once you get there, you park up your car in the paddock. We call it paddock, but it's nothing to do with a circuit racing paddock. It's just a piece of tarmac or a piece of grass that you park up. It's super informal. So you just park up, unload your car. That is important. clear your car from absolutely everything that is loose, because things will move about. You're going to be pulling a lot of lateral acceleration and longitudinal acceleration on the car, and things can be trapped under the pedals or fly on you. So just make sure that you clear the car from absolutely everything that is loose. The scrutineers will check that. So if you miss anything, surely they will pick it up. After that, you join the scrutineering queue. Now, scrutineering, it's a word that can get people a bit concerned, but in this level of motorsport, you certainly do not need to be. It's not an MOT check. They're not going to check absolutely everything on your car. They will check the important safety things, such as the yellow tape on your negative terminal. They will check that the battery is properly constrained. They will check that your seats are not loose, the brake pedal works, the steering is not loose. So very, very high level checks. You don't need to be worried. And if anything goes wrong, it's just a matter of talking to other competitors or the organizers, and we will help you out, make sure that you get your run. So once you go through scrutineering, you get a piece of paper saying that you passed. So you take that to the club trailer and sign some paperwork saying that you are good to go. And the person in the trailer will hand over a pack to you. That pack will have your car number, timing card, which is for your own personal reference, because now all the times are done via an app, which you also have access to. So that's pretty cool, because you do your run and you can check your time straight away on the app and compare to other people's times. And the most important bit on the pack will be the test maps. Now, with the test maps in hand, you can now drive down to the tests and walk them. Now, walking the tests is worth a lot. You should really aim to walk the tests as many times as you can, because once you drive in the test, you don't have time to think which way you should go around the cone. So you really should know where to go. So again, walk the test as many times as you can. So after that, you go back to the paddock, and there will be a signal, a horn or something like that to indicate that it's time for the driver's briefing. So everyone gathers around the clerk of the course, who will tell you safety information about the site, about the tests, and they will also tell you which tests you should start your runs, because we tend to divide all the classes to start in different tests. So we've got 4 in the morning, so everyone will start in a different one in sequence of numbers, and we do ask people to keep to that sequence. Otherwise, we end up having tests which have too many people waiting in the queue and tests that don't have anyone waiting, and that unbalances the whole thing, and it becomes a bit of a nightmare. So we do ask people to keep to that number and start at the test that you've been told to. So just before you start, everyone goes through a queue to do noise test. Again, nothing to worry about. If you're driving a passenger car, a regular road car, there won't be anything there that is noise enough to fail you. After that, then you just start racing. Right, I'm going to play this quick video which shows the day. Hopefully it makes it a bit easier for you to visualize what an Autosolo is and how informal it is. There you go. So you saw me approaching the site. There was an orange arrow there telling me where to go. You saw the queue for scrutineering. And then I got my scrutineering slip, went to the club trailer, got my pack, and then I walked the tests. And then you saw Barney Jones racing his 205 GTI. This day, Barney was super quick. It was awesome to watch him going around. Right, so hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavor of how the day goes. Now, the question, what car is best? I get asked this so many times. And my answer is always going to be the same, is the car that you drive every day. That is key. Confidence on Autosolos is the key. Your interaction with the car is the whole point of it. And using your road car is also the whole point of it. So whatever you drive every day is the best thing that you can use for an Autosolo. Now, some people do have toys and they prefer to use their toys. We've had an example recently that 3 Ferrari owners turned up with their Ferraris, one of them brand new, which is awesome. It's brilliant. That's exactly the point. Turn up with something that is your toy or your road car. So spot on. I use my Peugeot 106 usually for competition. And the Toyota MR2 that you see on the background, that is kind of my toy. That's a car that is not on the road. And I use it just every now and then to have some fun with a rear-wheel drive. There is a third option that I didn't write it down, which is your dad, your mum, or your partner's car. But don't tell them that. Just turn up, bring it back, keep it quiet. Right, next question that I get asked all the time: modifications. What do I do? What modifications are best to do to go fast? Don't do any modification to start with. The best thing you can do is to drive your car as much as possible. Passenger road cars are extremely capable. People don't realize how fast they actually are. But more importantly, they are consistent, right? Cars don't change from the beginning of an Autosolo to the end of an Autosolo. The question is, how consistent are you as the driver? So the key points that I tell people is, drive your car standard as much as you can. Whenever you become fast, very fast, winning event fast with your standard car, and extremely consistent, so your times throughout the day are the same between tests, that means that then your car is the limitation. But up to that point, you are the limitation, so you need more seat time. Once you reach that point, the best thing that you can modify in your car is use decent tires. There is nothing else that you're gonna get better return for your money than spending on tires. People tend to go for suspension first. I'm a suspension engineer. I can tell you that, no, leave it, go for tires. Learn the car with decent tires. That's the best thing you can do. The third most asked question is front wheel drive or rear wheel drive. It is entirely up to the person, whoever or whatever is best for you, or whatever you feel more comfortable with. It tends to be that if you learn and grew up with rear wheel drives, Capris or Ford Escorts or whatever, you're gonna favor the rear wheel drives, and you're gonna drive them well. If you've always been around front wheel drives throughout your life, then you'll probably be better off with a front wheel drive. Front wheel drives are easier to do better, and I say based on personal experience, because I do race with both of them, and I struggle to do the times that I do in a Peugeot 106, even though it's a smaller engine car compared to the MR2. And the reason for that is rear wheel drive is way more fun, but fun means going sideways. If you're going sideways, you're not going forwards, so you're not fast. And I actually put a cheeky video here to show exactly that. What you're going to see in this video is sliding about. It's not the way to do Autosolos. On this day, there was a fellow competitor called Nigel Cook, who drives a Mazda MX-5, and he was way faster than me. But when you're going sideways, you're having fun. So when I want to turn up and just enjoy myself, I take the MR2. So have a look at this run. There you go. Sliding about is fun, but it tends not to be fast. But the key point, what car is best? What car are you a confident driver in? That's it, use that. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the technical side of things, particularly vehicle dynamics. It's a very high level thing. But it's a topic that I'm very passionate about, and I study quite a bit about it. So if any of you wants to go deeper into it, I can either do a little talk about it, or I can tell you about books and stuff like that that you can get hold of. But I'm more than happy to discuss it and talk to you about it. I'll try and keep it simple. So I'll assume that people on the call knows absolutely nothing about cars. Understeer and oversteer. So those are the key parameters of how a vehicle behaves. So passenger road cars, well, let's go a step back. What is understeer? So if you're going around the corner and the car is following the radius of the corner and rotating around the radius of the corner, that is neutral steering, so that's okay. If you're going around the corner and the front end is assuming a larger radius than the back end, that means that you are understeering. So the front end is washing out and you are understeering. If you go around the corner and the back end is assuming a larger radius than the front end, then you are oversteering, which is fun. So oversteering, back end is stepping out. Now, passenger road cars all understeer. There is a good reason for that, which is safety. So if you go around the corner and the front end starts washing out, the first thing that you're going to do is to come off the throttle, which corrects that behavior. So that's good. Now, if you're going around the corner and the back end steps out and you oversteer, your first reaction is still going to be to come out of the throttle. But then what happens is the weight transfers to the front, back end gets even lighter, and you spin. So every single road car understeers to start with. So you keep it safe on public roads. The trouble is that is not good for low speed racing. You don't want a car understeery because it's going to take way too long for the car to start rotating to make around the corner, around the cone. So there are ways to correct it. I'll talk a little bit about it. So ideally you want a car that is neutral. But some people do like oversteery cars. I'm one of them. I like the back end is snapping out everywhere. As you can see on the picture here, I get rid of as much grip as I can from the rear because I do want the front to really command the maneuver. A key point when people talk about understeer is there is a misconception that tire noise, tire squeal is actually understeer. And it's not. So the key parameter to tell you if you are at the limit of the tires and understeering or not is actually steering torque. So as you're going around the corner, there will be a self-aligning torque trying to pull the steering wheel straight, right? So once you reach the limit of the tire and you saturate it, as they call, the steering wheel starts getting lighter. That is the point that you've gone above the limit of the tire. Forget about noise, try and learn how much you can push your car until the steering starts getting light. And then at that point, you need to back off on the throttle or back off on the steering wheel and increase your radius to bring the grip back on the tires. Now, as I said, every road car is understeery. So how do you correct that to make the car handle better on Autosolos? Well, the only parameter that you can actually tune in a road car is tire pressures, right? You don't tend to get cars with fancy suspension or anything like that. You can't really change the weight balance of a car. So the easiest is to actually change tire pressures. And talking about tire pressures, road pressures are not correct for Autosolos at all. Road pressures are determined by manufacturers to account for first comfort. So the car needs to ride well, and the tires need to work well with the suspension, and those pressures are set up primarily for that. And the second thing that is considered for tire pressures is tire wear. So you want the tire to wear evenly. So they set it in a way that is it. So if you run road pressures on an Autosolo, you're pulling so much lateral acceleration and longitudinal acceleration that the tire distorts too much, and you get terrible wear, and you end up wearing the tire much quicker than if you change the pressures. So you have to run higher pressures on Autosolos. I'm quite well known for running extremely high pressures. But there is a reason for that. I do like the cars to be sliding about and the back end super loose. If that's your thing, listen to my pressures on an event. If it's not, if you like a car a bit more neutral, then you need to work out what sort of pressures work for yourself. So how do you work out what is the right pressure? What I always suggest is you start with the front axle. You bump up the front pressures until you stop wearing out the edges of the tires. So you want to wear the tread in an even or as even as possible pattern. You don't want to wear any of the sidewall. So suppose the manufacturer tells you that you should be running 32 PSI on the front, bump it up to say 40 PSI, do a test and check how much wear you're getting or what's the pattern of the wear. Right, you go around and you're not folding the tire, you're not wearing the edge with 40 PSI, so you're good on the front. But now what happens is you've got more pressure on the front, less grip on the front, and it's a very understeery car. So you need to correct for that. A car that is already understeery. So what then I suggest is take the pressure that you set for the front, add at least 10 PSI, and bump up the rear. So the rears would go to 50 PSI. On my Peugeot, I run about 40 and 55, 60 on the rear. So you can see that the rear tire in this picture is barely distorted, is very overpressured. So the car will rotate quite quickly. Another interesting point that this picture shows is, and I'm quite well known for driving my cars on 3 wheels. So my back inside wheel is always off the ground. There's a few reasons for that. One is get rid of the grip from the rear, so it becomes a more neutral or oversteery car. But there is also a very interesting one that if you take the weight off this corner of the car, the weight is transferred diagonally, which means that I've got more vertical force on the inside wheel. Without a diff lock, that is very, very good. But that is going into too much detail. We can talk about that at another point. Right, so that's how I recommend you to set your tire pressures. I'm going to go a bit deep now into the technical side of things. Hopefully it will make sense to you. We're going to talk about slip ratio and slip angle. Those are technical terms, but essentially what slip ratio mean is, if you look at the picture on the corner here, on the left, the tire is turning at the same speed that the tarmac is moving. So that means that there is no slip between the tire and the tarmac. On the right is the opposite. The car is stationary, tarmac is stationary, and the wheel is spinning. So if we call this left-hand side 0, no slippage between the two, and we call this 1, full slippage between tarmac and tire, where you want to be is 0.3. So you want a little bit of slippage. So no slippage in Autosolos or any racing is not good. Full slippage is not good. You're not getting the maximum out of the tire, but you always want to be sliding a little bit. And that is valid for braking. So you modulate the brake to only just slide the tire. Under acceleration, same thing. And also laterally. So you want the car, once you put a steering input on the car, you want both the front and rear axles to slide a little bit, but not too much. Otherwise you go into saturation of the tire. So try and keep it around 0.3, which is between no slippage at all and some slippage. Right, so we've talked about Autosolos, what they are, how you go around, but how do you get involved and what are the opportunities in the East Anglia on the near future? So the first thing that you would need to do to get involved is to register for your free Clubman RS license. So you go on Motorsport website and there is a link there to find it. Or if you Google it, RS Motorsport UK license, you find it. It's free. It's just a registration. And you get a PDF of your license, or you pay a bit extra and you actually get a card for your license. You have to register to your local motor club. In our area, if you go on the Anglia Motor Sport Club, there is a section there, website, there is a section there that shows all the affiliated clubs. You can pick one or two or three or whatever. People tend to be members of more than one club and register with them. The motor clubs have a massive role because they are responsible for organizing events. So Anglia Motor Sport Club only helps organizing the resource, so we manage to run events, but the individual motor clubs are responsible for actually running them. So please do support them. And then after that, you find the link for the events that you want to do and you register for that particular event. So the next two events coming up, one is on the 14th of May. It's organized by Club Triumph and Chelmsford Motor Club. You will be at the Park and Ride in Chelmsford. I'm really looking forward to that one. I think I'm going to take the MR2 just to have some fun sliding about as opposed to the 106 and being competitive. It's a new venue for me as well, so I'm looking forward to that. And then on the 4th of June, this is a new venue for all of us, Wattisham Airfield, which I'm told that the tarmac is brilliant. The area is quite large. So I'm really hoping that this is going to be a very interesting event. I believe that is organized by Cambridge Car Club with Anglia Motor Sport Club support. So let me know if you want details on that, and I will send you links and all that. I think the entries for the 14th of May event is open already, but the entries for the 4th of June are not yet. So we talked specifically about Autosolos, but Anglia Motor Sport Club and all the clubs around this area, they organize all sorts of different events, and not only events that you can only compete. All the events have all sorts of different roles that you can take part as marshal or official. The clubs themselves need help with people to help out in general. And we also run different types of motorsport events, such as sprints, stage rally, which is a bit more, it's the next level from Autosolos, I would say. But we also have Targa rallies, 12-car rallies, production car trials, and general social events that go on. So if you guys need more information or want to know more, best way to reach us is probably social media nowadays. But we also have a couple of emails that you can use to contact us. The streetcar inquiries, that email is going to come straight to me. Happy to help you out. I'm also happy. I'm on all over social media, so feel free to contact me on social media directly. And for general queries about Anglia Motor Sports Club or any event, you can use the hello Anglia Motor Sport Club email. We're going to share these later, so don't worry about taking note of it now. Okay, so we're going to open now for questions. I think you've got a few questions, Laura, or just general chat?
So I haven't had any questions yet, okay. But I have got one to kick things off, if you don't mind, Vinny.
Yeah, go for it.
So you spoke a little bit previously about obviously growing up in Brazil and that, you know, motorsport being very different over there. When you did your first ever auto solo, what was your reaction? How did you find it? Kind of like, what was your thoughts?
Well, I certainly could not believe that there was such a thing as in, let's go a step back. Coming from Brazil, motorsport there is very restricted. It's only for very rich people. It's extremely hard to get into. People only know about Formula One and high level classes. There is very little in terms of grassroots there. So when someone told me, that was Steve Watt, he's quite active around Kent. He told me about how Autosolo worked. I could not believe it. So I eventually got hold of a Peugeot 106 1.1 that used to belong to a friend of mine. It had no brakes, but I managed to sort it out. And I came for first event organized, I believe, by West Suffolk Motor Club. I absolutely loved it. It's brilliant. It's cheap. I drive quite powerful stuff for work, like hypercar stuff, but there is nothing that I can drive that will give me the same sense of what's going on with the car as Autosolos, because you're constantly on the limit of the tire, either accelerating, braking, or turning, and everything happens quite quickly. So it's amazing to sharpen your driving skills. So yeah, that's probably what really attracted me to it, is being able to really improve my driving and my understanding of vehicle behavior using a motorsport that is quite cheap.
Oh, thank you, Vinny. We've got a question from Tony, who said, is it sensible to use alloy wheels or should we buy steel wheels?
It doesn't really matter. The venues tend to be good enough that you won't damage your wheels. Now, what I do recommend people, if you are precious about your wheels or your tires, it is probably worth popping down to your local scrapyard and buying a set of second-hand wheels with tires, no matter what they are. Rear wheels and tires, they don't get any damage or wear, so don't bother about rear. Well, in a front wheel drive car, if you get hold of two of them, will do. If they are steel or alloy, it doesn't really matter.
Oh, lovely. Thanks, Vinny. Has anybody else got any questions? Here we go. So Tony's got another one. If my car is a turbo, is the factor system used to move you to a higher class?
Yes, it is. Unless it's a diesel. I believe diesel, you are kept on the same sort of engine size that your car is originally. But if it's a petrol engine, yes, you will. The factor will be used.
Is that a problem?
In what sense?
Well, if you have a 1400 turbo and you're moved into the 1400 class because you've got it, then does that mean that you're non-competitive in the higher class?
No, I think that's actually a very important and great question. It does not matter how big is your engine. It does not matter if you've got a turbo. Nothing matters. I used to win events on Peugeot 1.1 against MX-5s, against Caterhams, Lotuses. So the key point that Autosolo is super attractive is the point that you are competitive no matter what you're driving. And the easier to drive the car, the more likely that you're going to do well. So it doesn't matter what you turn up with. A good example, the 3 Ferraris that turned up on the event recently, they didn't do well at all. They are not the right cars for this. But yeah, it doesn't matter. The last events that we've done, first and second places overall was a Citroen Saxo 1.6, 8-valve, and then myself. And we did have, in that event, did we have a Caterham? We had a Fiat 500 Abarth, very powerful things. A very good example that you brought up, Tony, is a 1.4 turbo car. And the guy was really good, but he struggled to keep the pace against people who are more experienced and been doing this for longer and knows the car that they are driving more as well, are used to the car. So no, it doesn't matter what you use. The key point is seat time and being able to push your car constantly to its limit rather than engine size.
Right, thank you.
Vinny, I was just going to add to that. The power you're getting out of a 1.4 turbo these days is more equivalent to an 1800 normally aspirated. So the actual power ratio is much better. So you're on a par. So you're not outnumbered as such by the boys with the bigger engines as such. So yeah, it's fairly even playing fields, even though you're factored into the higher class. So it's fairly still fair.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, and for Autosolos and Targa rallies, I often mention that an engine that has got more low-end torque is better than an engine that has got high-end power. So in a turbo car, you're going to have to wait a fair bit for it to kick in. When in a 8-valve 1.4 engine, as soon as I go for the throttle, I've got plenty of torque to pull it. So yeah.
Can I just quickly follow on from one very small little comment that Vinny said that I heard? I think a lot of people hear it and underestimate it, but it's seat time. Really understanding your car, knowing what your car's going to do. Over the years, I've done sort of road rallies, 12 cars, bit of stage rallies, and going back to my Vauxhall Nova, like I used to know that thing inside out, but more importantly, I knew how it would react. Yeah. So I'd learn, like Vinny was saying about understeer, oversteer, you get to know that feeling. You can be in the most underpowered car, unprepared car, and really bog standard, but it's knowing how it's going to react and have the confidence when you go into something of how it's going to react and how it's going to come out the other side. That I think just makes a big difference. It's just having that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely, Ben. You nailed it. So the key point on Autosolos is to approach the corner at the maximum speed that you reckon that the car can take. So to get that feeling, you need seat time. So instead of spending money on tires or anything else, spend money on doing events and driving your car as much as possible on the limits. That will certainly improve you exponentially as opposed to changing anything.
Oh, thank you. We've got another question, Vinny.
Yeah.
This one is around car insurance. Does normal car insurance work in case of an accident?
I guess you will see on your policy, unless there's a very specific policy saying that any sort of racing is not covered by that insurance policy. So I guess the answer to that question is no. But in an Autosolo, the risk of an accident is very low. The whole setup of the motorsport from Motorsport UK, all the regulations are meant to keep it very safe. You might hit a cone, you might get a cone to slap your car, you might get an orange mark, which will polish it out. But an accident is very rare. I haven't heard of an accident on an Autosolo, to be honest.
And its average speeds of around, what, 30 miles an hour as well. It's very low speed.
There you go. Yeah, you are basically first and second gear, possibly third gear. So it's at low speed. Hence, no need for any safety equipment, right? It's all within the street car ethos, racing without extra safety equipment like helmets and roll cage and all that.
Definitely. Well, I hope that's answered your question. Has anybody else got a question? If not, or if you think of something later, you're always welcome to send one of us an email as well.
I don't want to hog the forum, but I do have one more question, if I may.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, you mentioned that the neutral cable on the battery should have a yellow tape. And my background is motorsport marshalling. So I open the bonnet and I see the cable with the yellow tape on it. What am I supposed to do with it? I
would refer that to Dave Shaggy Sent, who is our marshal expert. Dave, can you help us out on that? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. Yeah, the yellow tape will be on the negative terminal to the battery. So in case, very rare case of an incident, you know which terminal you're disconnecting first.
The rule is it's the negative that's to be disconnected then?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Very good, thank you.
Thank you. And Alan's just popped in the chat. There are some specialist companies that do offer insurance on events. For example, Shepherd Compello. So if it is something you are worried about or you do particularly want to go and get insurance, then definitely worth looking at those and checking in your policies and making sure you know exactly what is and isn't covered.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Alan, for that.
Lovely. Any final questions? No, I think you've covered it all, Vinny.
That's it then. Good. But if there are any more questions or if you want to discuss anything further, just send us an email. More than happy to talk to people.
Lovely. Vinny, if you go on, there is a next slide, isn't there?
There's a couple.
Brilliant.
That one.
Yeah. So please join us, come and be part of the action. We are about 2/3 of the way through Motorsport Month East now, but not to worry, there's still so much more that you can get involved in. Have you got the calendar slide, Vinny?
Yeah.
Perfect. So this is a list of all the events that we're running as part of Motorsport Month East. So you will see our next event is going to be the Corbo Seats Rally this weekend, which I hope lots of you get involved in, whether that's spectating, marshalling or competing. But this is typical of any month. So don't worry, although it's currently Motorsport Month, which is why we're specifically putting on these webinars, we're really trying to work hard to highlight opportunities to get involved in motorsport. There are opportunities all year round. So please get involved in as much as you can during Motorsport Month and have a look at our calendar, and hopefully we might see you at some of the upcoming Autosolos. But thank you all for joining, and thank you very much as well, Vinny, for presenting this. It's been a really great webinar.
Nice. Thank you. I appreciate you
One
all the work that
final
you put into it.
from Alan, who's just said it's worth taking a spare pair of wheels with decent tyres, if possible, to ensure you can drive home legally if tyre wear is high. Thank you, Alan. Lovely. Well, thank you all for joining, and hopefully we might see you in the next 2 weeks. We've got 2 more webinars to go. So next Tuesday, it's going to be an introduction to road rallying and 12 cars. And it's going to be David Smalley who's running that one. And then the week after that, on the 2nd of May, we've got Laura Christmas and Duncan Christmas. So we're going to be running an introduction to Targa rallying. And Targa rallying is a natural step up from an auto solo. So that would definitely be a great one to attend if that's the sort of thing you're interested in.
Brilliant. Cheers, Laura. Cheers, Vinny.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.